My name is Cole Archer, and at 38, I've built a life I thought was pretty solid. I'm a software consultant, the kind of guy who works from home in sweatpants and still pulls in enough money to keep everyone around me happy. My wife, Lillian, her mother, Vivian, and even her lazy cousin, Ezra. They all depend on me, and I've never minded too much. I mean, I married into this loud, messy Southern family 8 years ago, and I figured that's just how it works. They're a little wild, always talking over each other, laughing too loud, and planning things I'd never dream up on my own. I used to call it eccentric, charming, even. But lately, I'm starting to see it's more than that. They don't just lean on me. They expect me to carry them, and I'm not sure how I feel about it anymore. Take this Bermuda trip, for instance. Lillian came to me a couple of months back, her eyes all bright, saying, "Cole, let's take the family somewhere amazing, like Bermuda." I could have said no. I could have pointed out that we'd just paid off her car or that Vivian's roof repair wasn't cheap. But I didn't. I said yes because I always say yes, and before I knew it, I was the one booking everything. Flights, a fancy villa with ocean views, even a boat tour for the whole crew. It wasn't just me and Lillian either. She wanted her mom, Ezra, and a few others tagged along too. I didn't blink at the cost. I just swiped my card and figured it'd be worth it to see her smile. She's got this way of making me feel like I'm the hero when I give her what she wants, and I've always liked that feeling. So, I planned it all, double-checked the reservations, and sent everyone the details. I pictured us on that boat, the sun warm on my face, maybe a cold beer in my hand, while Lillian laughed beside me. It sounded perfect, but then something started gnawing at me. It wasn't anything big at first, just a quiet little itch in the back of my mind. Maybe it was the way Lillian kept adding people to the trip without asking me, or how Vivian called me the bank one too many times with that smirk of hers. I'd laugh it off, but it stuck with me. I'd sit there in my home office, staring at code on my screen, and wonder why I was the only one putting anything into this. Lillian would breeze in, kiss my cheek, and say, "You're the best, Cole," and I'd let it go. She's beautiful, you know? Dark hair, green eyes, the kind of smile that makes you forget what you were mad about. That's how it's always been with us. I met her at a friend's barbecue, and she had me hooked in 10 minutes flat. I didn't care that her family came with her. They were part of the deal, and I told myself I could handle it. Back then, I thought they liked me. Vivian would call me son. Ezra would bum a beer and clap me on the back, and I felt like I belonged. But now, with this trip coming up, I'm not so sure. It's like I'm not even part of the plan, just the guy who makes it happen. I'd hear them on the phone, Lillian and her mom, giggling about something, and when I'd ask, they'd wave me off. "Oh, it's nothing, Cole," Lillian would say, but her eyes wouldn't meet mine. I started paying attention after that. Like when Ezra dropped by unannounced last week, sprawled on my couch, and said, "Man, this Bermuda thing's gonna be epic. Thanks for footing the bill." He grinned like it was a joke, but it didn't feel funny. I nodded, kept my mouth shut, and went back to my laptop. I didn't want to start a fight, not yet. I told myself I was overthinking it. Families are messy, right? They bicker, they push, they take, but they're still family. I've never had a big one of my own, just a quiet dad who passed when I was 20 and a mom who lives across the country now. Lillian's clan filled that gap for me, and I didn't mind the noise. At least, I didn't used to. But as the trip got closer, that itch turned into something heavier. I'd catch Vivian whispering to Lillian in the kitchen, their voices dropping when I walked in. One night, I overheard Ezra on the phone saying, "Yeah, Cole's got it covered. He always does. Always does." Those words stuck in my chest like a splinter. I sat there after he left, staring at the Bermuda itinerary on my screen, flight times, villa check-in, the boat tour schedule, and wondered why I wasn't more excited. I should have been. I'd worked hard for this. My job's good, steady, the kind of gig that lets me afford nice things without breaking a sweat. I'm not flashy about it, though. I drive a used truck, wear the same sneakers until they fall apart. The money's for them, Lillian, Vivian, Ezra, for the life I thought we were building together. But sitting there, alone in my office with the house quiet, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. Not just off, wrong. Like I'd missed a step somewhere and was about to trip. I didn't know what it was yet, but it was there, simmering under the surface, waiting for me to figure it out. 2 weeks before we were supposed to leave, it hit me full force. Vivian called me over for dinner, and I walked into something I never saw coming. But that's another story, one I'll get to soon enough. For now, I'm just Cole Archer, the guy who thought he had it all under control, staring at a trip I paid for and wondering why it didn't feel like mine anymore. 2 weeks before we were supposed to fly out to Bermuda, I got a call from Vivian, my mother-in-law, inviting me over for dinner at her place. She's got this big, creaky house about 20 minutes from ours, all wood floors and faded wallpaper, the kind of place that smells like fried chicken and mothballs no matter what's cooking. I didn't think much of it. Vivian loves her family dinners, and I've been dragged to plenty of them over the years. Lillian said she'd meet me there, so I threw on a clean shirt, grabbed my keys, and drove over, figuring it'd be the usual chaos. Loud stories, too much food, and Vivian bossing everyone around. I wasn't wrong about the chaos, but I had no idea what I was walking into. When I pulled up, the driveway was packed, Lillian's car, her Aunt Ruth's old sedan, even a couple of vehicles I didn't recognize. I stepped inside, and the air hit me thick with wine and chatter. Vivian was at the head of the dining table, her gray hair pulled back tight, waving a glass like she was toasting the room. Lillian sat next to her, picking at a plate of cornbread, her green eyes flicking up to me for half a second before dropping again. Ruth was there too, her loud laugh cutting through the noise, and two of Lillian's friends, Carrie and Beth, I think, were giggling over something on their phones. Ezra wasn't around, which was odd, but I didn't dwell on it. I slid into the empty chair next to Lillian, gave her a quick kiss on the cheek, and said, "Hey, looks like a party." She smiled, but it was tight, like she was holding something back. I should have noticed that right away, but I was too busy grabbing a roll and nodding at Vivian's latest rant about her neighbor's dog. The wine kept flowing, and I stuck to water. I've never been big on drinking, especially not around this crowd. Everything felt normal enough until Vivian set her glass down hard, cleared her throat, and said, "Cole, we've made a small change to the trip." The room went quiet, and I felt every pair of eyes land on me. I put my roll down slow, wiped my hands on a napkin, and looked at her. "What kind of change?" I asked, keeping my voice steady. Lillian jumped in before Vivian could answer, her words spilling out fast. "I invited Jonah. Just for a few days." Jonah? Her ex-husband. The guy who'd crashed our wedding rehearsal 8 years ago, drunk as hell, yelling about how I'd stolen his girl. He'd shoved me into a table, and it took Ezra and 2 ushers to drag him out. I hadn't seen him since, but his name still made my jaw tighten. I turned to Lillian, waiting for her to meet my eyes, but she wouldn't. She just stared at her plate, crumbling that cornbread into dust. "Jonah," I said, real slow, letting it sink in. "You invited Jonah to the trip I'm paying for." She nodded, quick and sharp, like it was no big deal. Before I could even process that, Vivian leaned forward, her smirk sharp as a knife, and added, "And Mark will join too. You know, your wife's high school sweetheart." Carrie and Beth burst into giggles, like this was some hilarious sitcom moment. Mark, the guy Lillian dated for 3 years before college, the one she brought up a few too many times when we first got together, always with this little smile like she was testing me. I hadn't heard his name in years, and now he was tagging along to Bermuda? My Bermuda? I felt my pulse kick up, but I kept my face blank. Vivian wasn't done. She sipped her wine, eyeing me over the rim, and said, "Since you're not feeling the vibe, Cole, we'll just give your ticket to Mark." Ruth snorted, then covered it with a cough. Lillian still wouldn't look at me. The room spun a little, not from wine, but from the sheer guts of what they were pulling. I leaned back in my chair, crossed my arms, and let the silence stretch. "Let me get this straight," I said, my voice low but clear. "You're telling me you've invited 2 guys my wife used to sleep with to a vacation I planned and paid for, and now you're kicking me off it?" Vivian shrugged, like I was being dramatic. "It's not like that, Cole. We just thought it'd be fun." Fun. That word hit me like a slap. Lillian finally glanced up, her eyes wide, and said, "You're overreacting. It's just a trip." Overreacting. I looked around the table, Vivian smirking, Ruth avoiding my gaze, Carrie and Beth whispering to each other, and I felt like I was in some twisted game I didn't sign up for. I could have yelled. I could have flipped the damn table and stormed out. But I didn't. I've always been the calm one, the guy who fixes things, not breaks them. So I just sat there, letting it burn inside me, and started piecing it together. This wasn't a last-minute idea. They'd planned this, talked about it behind my back, laughed about it, probably poured more wine while they figured out how to sell it to me. And Lillian, my wife, the woman I'd built my whole life around, was in on it. I thought about the trip, my money, my time, my effort, and now Jonah and Mark were waltzing in like they belonged there more than I did. I pictured Jonah's smug face, Mark's easy grin, and me what? Sitting at home while they sipped cocktails on my dime? No, that wasn't happening. I pushed my chair back, slow and deliberate, and stood up. Cole, sit down, Vivian said, her tone sharp now, like she was scolding a kid. I ignored her. I looked at Lillian one last time, hoping she'd say something, anything, to make this make sense. She didn't. She just stared at me, her mouth half open, like she was surprised I wasn't rolling over like usual. Enjoy your dinner, I said, my voice flat. I nodded once, turned, and walked out. The screen door slammed behind me, and I heard Vivian mutter something, followed by Ruth's loud. Well, that went great. I didn't care. I got in my truck, started the engine, and sat there for a minute, hands gripping the wheel. They thought I'd come back, tail between my legs, begging to keep my spot on that trip. They were wrong. I drove home, the road blurring a little, not from tears, but from the anger boiling up. By the time I pulled into my driveway, I knew what I had to do. They wanted to play me? Fine. But I wasn't playing anymore. I walked inside, grabbed my laptop, and started typing. This wasn't over, not by a long shot. I didn't lose it when I got home from that dinner at Vivian's, not the way they probably expected me to. I could have shouted, smashed something, called Lillian, and demanded answers until my voice gave out. But that's not me. I'm not the guy who explodes. I'm the one who thinks, who plans, who waits until the right moment hits. So I walked into our house, my house, really, since I'd paid for every brick of it, dropped my keys on the counter, and stood there in the dark for a minute, letting the quiet settle over me. My chest was tight, my hands still shaky from gripping the steering wheel, but I kept my head clear. I wasn't going to give them the satisfaction of seeing me break. I flipped on the kitchen light, grabbed a glass of water, and sat down at the table where Lillian and I used to eat breakfast together. Used to. Funny how fast that felt like a lifetime ago. I replayed the dinner in my head, Vivian's smirk, Lillian's dodgeball eyes, the way they all acted like I was the crazy one for not smiling and nodding while they handed my trip to Jonah and Mark. You're overreacting, Lillian had said, like inviting her exes to a vacation I'd funded was just a quirky little hiccup. I set the glass down hard enough to slosh water on the table and stared at it, feeling that burn in my gut grow hotter. Overreacting? No. I was reacting exactly how any sane man would. I looked at her chair, empty now, and said out loud to nobody, "You invited two men you slept with to a vacation I'm funding, and didn't even tell me." My voice bounced off the walls, steady but sharp, like I was testing how it sounded. It sounded right. It sounded like the truth they didn't want to hear. I stood up, paced the kitchen a few times, then stopped by the sink and looked out the window at the backyard. Dark, still, just a shadow of the swing set we put up years ago for no kids we ever had. Ezra's voice popped into my head then, that stupid clap on my shoulder at the dinner table. Lighten up. Man, you'll still be around. Around? Like I was some tag-along, some extra they could shove in the corner while Jonah and Mark took center stage. I clenched my fists, then let them go. No point in getting mad at Ezra. He's a leech, always has been. It was Lillian who'd cut me deepest. My wife. The woman I'd said I do to, the one I'd built this life for. She didn't just go along with this, she'd helped plan it. I could feel it. I turned away from the window, walked to my office, and sat down at my desk. The laptop hummed to life, and I stared at the screen. The Bermuda itinerary still open from earlier that day, flights, villa, boat tour, all in my name, all paid with my card. My trip. My money. And they thought they could rewrite the guest list like I was some doormat who'd just shrug and say, sure, why not? I leaned back in my chair, ran a hand through my hair, and let out a slow breath. They'd misread me. Badly. I didn't yell at that dinner table because I didn't need to. Words wouldn't fix this. Action would. I leaned forward, clicked into the airline site, and canceled every single flight reservation, one by one, watching the booking canceled confirmations pop up like little victories. Then the villa gone. The boat tour done. My fingers moved fast, steady, no hesitation. I didn't feel guilty, didn't second-guess it. This wasn't petty. This was me taking back what was mine. When it was all done, I pulled up my email, attached screenshots of every cancellation, and sent it to the whole group. Lillian, Vivian, Ruth, even Ezra, though he wasn't at dinner. Subject line: trips off. No explanation, no rant, just the facts. Let them figure it out. I sat back, watching the email whoosh away, and felt something shift inside me. Not relief yet, but a kind of quiet power. They'd think I was sulking, throwing a tantrum because my feelings got hurt. Let them. I wasn't done. I opened a new tab, searched for flights, solo flights, just for me. Lake Como, Italy, popped into my head. I'd seen pictures once, blue water, green hills, old stone towns. Peaceful. The opposite of the circus I'd been living in. I found a one-way ticket leaving in 3 days, clicked book, and watched the confirmation load. No villa, no boat, just me and a suitcase. My phone buzzed. Lillian, probably, or Vivian, but I ignored it. I wasn't ready to hear their excuses yet. Instead, I called Julian Prescott, my lawyer. We'd met years ago through a work buddy, and he'd handled a contract dispute for me once. He picked up on the second ring, his voice gruff but calm. "Cole, it's late. Everything okay?" I didn't waste time. "I need you to start separation proceedings against Lillian. I'm leaving the country in a few days. I'll sign whatever you need from there." He paused, then said, "You sure about this?" I looked at the flight confirmation on my screen, the canceled Bermuda mess, and nodded even though he couldn't see me. "Yeah, I'm sure." He didn't push, just said, "I'll get it rolling. Stay safe, man." We hung up, and I leaned back again, the house silent except for the hum of the laptop. My phone kept buzzing. 5 times, 10, a dozen. Texts, calls, probably the whole family losing their minds. I didn't check. I shut the phone off, set it face down on the desk, and stood up. The air felt different now, lighter, like I'd shaken off a weight I didn't even know I was carrying. I walked to the bedroom, pulled a suitcase from the closet, and started packing, slowly, deliberately, just the basics. Shirts, jeans, a pair of boots. No rush. I didn't need much where I was going. I thought about Lillian's face at dinner, the way she wouldn't look at me, and wondered what she'd say when she realized I wasn't bluffing. Would she cry? Yell? Beg? I didn't know, and for the first time in years, I didn't care. I zipped the suitcase shut, set it by the door, and went back to my office. I opened a notebook, one I hadn't touched in forever, and started writing. Just a line at first. Tonight, I took my life back. It wasn't dramatic, it was true. I closed the book, turned off the light, and went to bed. The storm was coming. They'd make sure of that. But for now, I slept better than I had in months. 10 minutes after I hit send on that email with the cancellation screenshots, my phone lit up like a fireworks show. I'd turned it back on just to see how they'd react, and man, they didn't disappoint. I sat there in my office chair, the laptop still glowing with my Lake Como flight confirmation, and watched the chaos unfold. The group chat, some family thread Lillian had named Archer Clan years ago, exploded first. Lillian's message popped up. "Where are the bookings?" "Cole, what's going on?" "No, please. No, are you okay?" Just straight to the point, like I'd misplaced her favorite shoes or something. Then Vivian chimed in, all caps. "What do you mean canceled?" I could hear her voice in my head, that shrill bark she used when she didn't get her way. "Ruth, always the peacemaker until she wasn't," typed, "I told you not to push him." And I almost laughed, almost, because it was the first honest thing I'd seen from any of them. Ezra didn't write anything, but I figured he was too busy mooching off someone else's Wi-Fi to care. My phone buzzed again, Lillian calling this time, but I let it ring. I wasn't ready to talk, not yet. I didn't owe them an explanation. They'd made their move at that dinner, and this was mine. I leaned back, staring at the ceiling, and let the buzzing go on, a little symphony of their panic. It felt good, not cruel good, just fair. I'd spent years bending over backwards for these people, and the one time I said no, they thought they could steamroll me anyway. Not this time. I set the phone down, muted it, and turned back to my laptop. Lake Como was waiting, and I wasn't about to let their meltdown derail me. I pulled up the flight details again, departing in 3 days, one way, no return date. I didn't need one. I'd figure that out later. The ticket was cheap enough, and I had savings, money Lillian didn't even know about, tucked away in an account I'd set up years ago for emergencies. This qualified. I booked a small hotel too, nothing fancy, just a room with a view of the lake. I pictured myself there, sipping coffee on a balcony, no voices nagging in my ear, no demands pulling me 10 different ways. It wasn't revenge, it was escape, and it felt right. My phone kept vibrating on the desk, a silent tantrum I could ignore. I didn't need to read the rest of their messages to know what they'd say, anger, guilt trips, maybe some fake tears thrown in for good measure. I'd seen it all before. Like that time Vivian borrowed 2 grand from me for her car and cried when I asked for it back. Or when Lillian swore she'd pay half the mortgage someday, then never did. I'd let it slide every time, told myself it was fine, that I could handle it. But this? Inviting Jonah and Mark? Kicking me off my own trip? That wasn't fine. That was a line they didn't get to cross. I stood up, stretched, and walked to the kitchen to grab a beer, something I rarely did, but tonight called for it. The house was quiet, just the hum of the fridge and the clink of the bottle against the counter. I popped the cap, took a long sip, and leaned against the sink, thinking. They'd figure out soon enough that I wasn't bluffing. The trip was gone: flights, villa, boat, all of it, and they couldn't undo that. I'd locked them out of my accounts months ago, a habit I'd picked up after Vivian tried using my credit card for business expenses without asking. They had no leverage now, no way to guilt me back into line. I took another sip and smiled a little, picturing their faces when they realized it. My phone buzzed again, probably 15 calls by now, but I left it in the office. I didn't need the noise. Instead, I opened my email and wrote to Julian, my lawyer. Initiate separation proceedings, I typed. I'll be out of the country soon. Send me whatever I need to sign digitally. I hit send, no hesitation. Julian would handle it. He was good like that. No nonsense, just results. I'd known him long enough to trust he'd keep this clean and quiet, at least on my end. Lillian could scream all she wanted. The law didn't care about her feelings. I finished the beer, tossed the bottle in the recycling, and went back to my office. My phone was a mess of notifications, missed calls from Lillian, Vivian, even Ruth, plus a dozen texts I didn't bother opening. I turned it off completely this time, slid it into a drawer, and shut the laptop. The house felt bigger without their voices bouncing around in my head, like I could finally hear myself think. I walked to the bedroom, kicked off my shoes, and sat on the edge of the bed, our bed, though it hadn't felt like that in a while. Lillian's side was still messy, a tangle of sheets and a pillow she'd hugged more than me lately. I didn't touch it. Let her deal with it when she came back, if she came back. I lay down, staring at the ceiling, and let my mind drift to Como. I'd never been to Italy, never even left the States much, but it called to me now. I imagined the water, the mountains, the kind of quiet that didn't come with strings attached. I'd be gone before they could corner me, before they could twist this into something I'd feel bad about. They'd try. I knew that. Vivian with her lectures, Lillian with her tears, but I'd be halfway across the world, out of reach. I rolled over, grabbed my notebook from the nightstand, and wrote another line. They thought they'd win. They didn't. It wasn't much, but it was enough. I closed the book, turned off the lamp, and lay there in the dark, listening to the house settle. My phone stayed off, their messages piling up in silence. I didn't care. I'd said what I needed to with those cancellations, with that flight to Como, with that email to Julian. They'd get the message soon enough. Not the one they wanted, but the one they deserved. I closed my eyes, the beer settling warm in my stomach, and let myself relax. The storm was theirs now, not mine. I'd be on a plane in 3 days, and whatever they threw at me between now and then, I'd handle it. I always did. But this time, it'd be on my terms, not theirs. Sleep came easy, and for once, I didn't dream of Lillian's voice or Vivian's smirk. Just water, blue and endless, stretching out ahead of me. 3 days after I canceled the Bermuda trip and booked my flight to Lake Como, I was gone. I didn't stick around to watch the fallout in person, didn't need to. I'd packed my suitcase, locked up the house, and driven myself to the airport with the radio off. Just me and the hum of the engine. The flight was long, but I didn't mind. Every mile between me and them felt like a knot loosening in my chest. I landed in Italy, took a shuttle to my little hotel by the lake, and settled in with nothing but a backpack and a clean slate. I didn't check my phone for a while. Kept it off, actually, because I wasn't ready to deal with whatever mess they'd left behind. But a week later, I got curious. I turned it on, connected to the hotel's Wi-Fi, and let the notifications roll in. That's when I heard what happened at the airport back home, pieced together from texts, voicemails, and a few gleeful DMs from people who weren't on Lillian's side anymore. They'd shown up that weekend, the whole crew, ready for paradise. I could see it in my head clear as day. Vivian in one of her loud floral dresses, barking at Ezra to carry her bags, Lillian fussing with her hair, maybe even Jonah and Mark strutting around like they owned the place. They'd gone all out, I heard. Matching family t-shirts, the kind with some cheesy slogan like Archer Bermuda Bash printed across the chest. I bet Lillian designed them, thinking it'd make for cute photos. They rolled up to the check-in counter, all swagger and sunscreen, only to find out there were no tickets, no reservations, nothing waiting for them. The gate agent must have looked at them like they were nuts, tapping away at her computer, saying, "I'm sorry, ma'am. There's no record of your booking." Vivian, I'm told, turned pale as a ghost, her mouth flapping open and shut like a fish out of water. She probably demanded to speak to a manager, waving her arms, while Lillian started crying right there in front of everyone, mascara streaking down her face. Jonah, good old Jonah, lost his temper and baggage claim, cursing loud enough to turn heads, kicking at his suitcase like it was the bag's fault. Mark, from what I heard, just shrugged, said, "Well, this sucks," and walked off to the parking lot without a backward glance. Ruth tried to calm them down, but Ezra's girlfriend, Brielle, later told me it was a total circus, people staring, kids pointing, the whole family unraveling right there in the terminal. I sat on my hotel balcony, a tiny thing overlooking Lake Como, sipping espresso from a chipped mug, and pictured every second of it. The water stretched out in front of me, blue and calm, little boats bobbing along like they didn't have a care in the world. I didn't laugh out loud, but I felt light, lighter than I had in years. They'd built this big, shiny plane on my back, and when I pulled out, it crashed down hard. I didn't feel bad, not even a little. They'd earned it. I took another sip, the coffee bitter and strong, and leaned back in the wobbly metal chair. The air smelled clean, like pine and water, nothing like the heavy humidity back home. I'd been in Como a few days by then, wandering the narrow streets, eating pasta at hole-in-the-wall spots, letting the sun warm my face without anyone telling me what to do next. It was the first time in forever I wasn't running someone else's errands or paying someone else's bills. I'd left them with nothing, no flights, no villa, no yacht, and it felt like I'd finally taken something for myself. Brielle's DM popped up while I was scrolling. You should have seen their faces. Cole. Total meltdown. Wish I'd recorded it. She'd attached a blurry photo, Vivian yelling at a counter agent, Lillian slumped in a chair, head in her hands. I zoomed in, studied it for a minute, then closed it. I didn't need the proof. I could imagine it fine. I wrote back, "Thanks for the update. Glad I missed it," and left it at that. She'd been texting me bits and pieces since I left. Nothing pushy, just little updates. I liked her. She'd never bought into the family's nonsense, even if Ezra did. I set the phone down, picked up my notebook, and started writing again. I'd been doing that a lot, jotting down thoughts, moments, stuff I didn't want to forget. Day 5 in Como, I wrote. They fell apart without me. I didn't. Simple, but true. I closed the book and stood up, stretching my arms over my head. The lake glittered under the afternoon sun, and I decided to walk down to it, maybe dip my feet in. I grabbed my shoes, locked the room, and headed out, the cobblestone path cool under my soles. I wasn't lonely, not like I thought I'd be. Back home, I'd always been surrounded, but it was a crowd that drained me, not filled me up. Here, alone, I was starting to feel alive. I passed an old guy fishing off a dock, nodded at him, and he nodded back, no words needed. I kept going, found a quiet spot by the water, and sat down on a smooth rock. The lake lapped at the shore, soft and steady, and I let my mind wander. I wondered what Lillian said to the gate agent. Probably some sob story about her mean husband ruining everything. I wondered if Vivian tried to bribe someone, flashing that fake charm she thought worked on everyone. I wondered if Jonah punched a wall when he got home, or if Mark just laughed it off like he didn't care either way. Didn't matter. They weren't my problem anymore. I kicked off my shoes, rolled up my jeans, and stuck my feet in the water, cold, sharp, waking me up. I stayed there a while, watching the sun dip lower, the sky turning pink and gold. My phone buzzed again, another voicemail, probably Vivian this time, but I didn't check it. I didn't need to hear her voice to know she'd blame me, call me selfish, say I'd ruined their fun. Let her. I wasn't going back to fix it. I pulled my feet out, shook them dry, and stood up. The walk back to the hotel was slow, easy, my shadows stretching long on the path. I'd started living, really living, and they couldn't touch that. Not here. Not anymore. I'd been in Lake Como for about 2 weeks when I finally logged into social media again. Not because I missed it, but because I wanted to see how they were spinning the mess I'd left behind. I kept my phone off most of the time, letting the quiet of Italy soak into me. But curiosity got the better of me one morning. I was sitting at a small cafe near the lake, a plate of warm bread and a coffee in front of me, the water sparkling under a clear sky. I pulled out my phone, connected to the cafe's Wi-Fi, and opened the app one hadn't touched since before the dinner ambush. The first thing I saw was Lillian's post, pinned at the top of her profile like a billboard. "My husband abandoned us," she wrote. "We made one harmless change to a trip, and he lost it, canceled everything, and left us stranded. I'm heartbroken." I read it twice, letting the words sink in, and took a slow sip of coffee. Heartbroken? That's what she was going with. I scrolled down, and there was Vivian, right on cue, commenting under it. "He's unstable, that's what he is." Poor Lillian, stuck with a man who'd rather run than talk. I set the cup down and leaned back in my chair, staring at the screen. Unstable. Abandoned. Harmless change. They'd turned it into a soap opera, and I was the villain, some unhinged guy who flipped out over nothing and ditched his family. I could have been mad, could have typed up a big rant right there to set the record straight, but I didn't. I just kept scrolling, watching their story unfold. A few of Lillian's friends had chimed in. Carrie with a sad emoji, Beth with a "you deserve better" girl, and some random cousins I barely knew had liked it. It was a performance, all of it, polished up to make them look like victims and me like the bad guy. I pictured Lillian typing it out, maybe sniffling for effect, Vivian nodding over her shoulder, both of them sure this would win them the crowd. I shook my head, almost impressed by how fast they'd flipped the script. Almost. I took a bite of bread, chewed slow, and thought about what they weren't saying, how they'd invited Jonah and Mark, how they'd tried to kick me off my own trip, how they'd planned it behind my back. None of that made it to their little online pity party. I was about to close the app when a message popped up, not from them, but from Brielle, Ezra's girlfriend. "Hey, Cole," she wrote. "They crossed the line with this one. If you need receipts, I've got screenshots. They're full of it." I paused, my thumb hovering over the screen. "Receipts?" I typed back, "What kind of receipts?" and waited. She didn't take long. A minute later, my phone pinged with a string of images, group chat logs, text threads, even a photo of a hotel receipt. I opened the first one, a chat between Lillian and Jonah from 3 months ago. "Miss you," she'd written. "Dinner soon?" His reply, "You know I'm there. Cole won't mind." Her answer, "He never does." I stared at that for a long time, the bread forgotten on my plate. 3 months. Not a spur-of-the-moment invite for Bermuda. This had been going on for a while. I swiped to the next screenshot, Lillian and Vivian, plotting. "Jonah's in," Vivian wrote. "Mark too. Cole will get over it. Lillian, he'll pay for it either way." I felt my stomach twist, not from hunger but from the cold, hard truth of it. They'd been scheming this for months, secret dinners with Jonah, sneaky hotel meetups, even a burner phone she'd shared with him, according to Brielle's notes. I opened the hotel receipt, some cheap place an hour from our house, booked under her name, paid with cash. Then the kicker, a text from Lillian to Mark, sent weeks before the dinner, with my Bermuda itinerary attached. "Pick whatever excursions you want," she'd written. "Cole's got it covered." Mark's reply, "Sweet. Let's make it fun." Fun. There was that word again, the same one Vivian threw at me when she announced they were giving my ticket away. I set the phone down, leaned my elbows on the table, and rubbed my face with both hands. It wasn't just a betrayal, it was a production, a whole play they'd rehearsed while I was busy working, paying bills, thinking we were a team. I looked out at the lake, the water so still it mirrored the mountains, and felt my jaw tighten. They counted on me being the same old Cole, quiet, steady, the guy who'd grumble but never push back. They'd miscalculated. I picked up the phone again, wrote to Brielle. "Thanks. This helps a lot. Keep me posted if anything else comes up." She replied quick, "Will do. You're better off without them." I didn't answer that, just closed the app, finished my coffee, and paid the bill. The waiter smiled, said something in Italian I didn't catch, and I nodded back, distracted. I stepped outside, the air cool against my skin, and started walking along the lake path. The screenshots burned in my mind. Every word, every date, every lie piling up like bricks. Lillian hadn't just reconnected with Jonah. She'd been sneaking around with him, plotting with her mom, roping in Mark like it was some twisted reunion tour. And me? I was the wallet, the fool who'd foot the bill while they laughed behind my back. I kicked a pebble into the water, watched it sink, and kept walking. Not everyone bought their sob story, though. Brielle didn't, and a few others had messaged me too. old work buddies, a cousin of mine from out west, saying they saw through the posts. Doesn't add up, my cousin wrote. Lillian's full of crap. It wasn't much, but it was enough to know I wasn't crazy. I stopped by a bench, sat down, and pulled out my notebook. They're spinning it hard, I wrote. But the truth's louder. I've got proof now. I closed it, leaned back, and watched a boat drift by, an old guy rowing slow and steady. I wasn't going to post anything, wasn't going to fight them online. That wasn't my style. I'd let Julian handle it. Those screenshots would look real nice in court. For now, I was here, breathing clean air, free of their noise. The spin didn't matter, the facts did. And I had them. I woke up early one morning in Lake Como, the kind of early where the sky's still gray and the birds haven't started chirping yet. My hotel room was small, just a bed, a desk, and a window that opened to the lake, but it felt like enough. I'd been there almost a month now, settling into a rhythm. Coffee by the water, long walks through the town, a little work when I felt like it. That morning, though, I had something else on my mind. Julian, my lawyer, had emailed me the night before, saying the divorce papers were ready to serve. I sat on the edge of the bed, my phone in one hand, and read his message again. Everything's set, Cole. I've got documentation on Lillian's emotional abuse, her slander online, and some financial misconduct we dug up. Vivian's in it too. Used your business account for personal purchases. We're ready to move. Just say the word. I set the phone down and stared out the window, the lake barely visible through the dawn haze. Emotional abuse, slander, financial misconduct. Those words hit hard, not because they surprised me, but because they made it real. I'd known Lillian and her family were messy, but seeing it laid out like that, clean and legal, felt like a punch I wasn't ready for. I stood up, splashed water on my face, and got dressed. Jeans, a sweater, nothing fancy. I needed air, needed to think, so I grabbed my notebook and headed to my usual cafe, the one with the wobbly tables and the old guy who always smiled when I ordered my espresso. I sat outside, the air cool against my skin, and opened Julian's email again. He'd attached a draft of the papers, and I skimmed them, my coffee going cold. There it was, everything I'd been through, boiled down to bullet points. Lillian's secret meetings with Jonah, her texts to Mark, the way she'd painted me as the bad guy online. Julian had even found proof of her spending my money on things she never told me about, clothes, trips, even a deposit for a car she claimed was a gift from her mom. And Vivian? She'd been dipping into my business account for years, charging consulting fees for a company that didn't exist. I leaned back in my chair, watching a couple of early risers stroll by with their dogs. I wasn't shocked, not really, but it still stung. I trusted them, Lillian most of all, and they'd played me like I was nothing but a bank account with legs. I typed back to Julian, "Go ahead and serve them. Send me anything I need to sign." I hit send, took a sip of coffee, and felt a weight lift, just a little. This wasn't about revenge. It was about closing a door they'd kept kicking open. I'd already moved most of our marital assets, mine, legally, into a separate trust months ago, back when I first caught Vivian messing with my accounts. The house, the savings, even the villa Lillian loved showing off to her friends, it was all out of her reach now. Her car? Leased in my name, and I'd already told the dealership to repossess it. I didn't gloat about it. Didn't need to. It was just business, same as they'd treated me. I finished my coffee, paid the bill, and started walking along the lake path, my notebook tucked under my arm. The water was calm, reflecting the mountains like a painting, and I let my mind wander. I thought about Lillian opening those papers, her face going pale when she saw the evidence, texts, receipts, bank statements. She'd probably cry, call her mom, maybe try to post another sob story online. But it wouldn't work this time. Julian was thorough, and the truth was on my side. Vivian would lose it. I bet, scream about family and loyalty while ignoring her own scams. I kicked a pebble into the water and kept going, the crunch of gravel under my shoes steadying me. I wasn't worried about them fighting back. They didn't have the money or the brains to outsmart Julian. Lillian's posts had already started losing traction. I checked last night, and half the comments were calling her out, asking why she'd invited her exes on my trip. People weren't as dumb as she thought. I stopped by a bench, sat down, and opened my notebook. "Paper served today," I wrote. "They'll try to spin it, but it's over. I'm done carrying their weight." I closed the book and looked out at the lake, a boat drifting slow in the distance. I wondered what they'd say when the news hit. Lillian, Vivian, maybe even Ezra, though he'd probably just shrug and mooch off someone else. I didn't care much. They'd made their bed, and I wasn't tucking them in anymore. My phone buzzed, a text from Brielle. Heard the papers are coming. Good for you. Lillian's been whining to anyone who'll listen. I smiled, typed back, thanks for the heads up, and left it at that. Brielle had been a lifeline, feeding me bits of truth when I needed it most. I stood up, stretched, and kept walking, the path curving toward the town square. I passed a market setting up, old ladies selling cheese, kids chasing each other around crates, and felt a pang of something I couldn't name. Not sadness, not regret, but relief, maybe mixed with a little ache for what could have been. I loved Lillian once, loved her laugh, her fire, the way she'd make me feel like I could do anything. But that was a long time ago, before the lies, before the games. Now, I was here, starting over, and she was back there, stuck in her own mess. I circled back to the hotel, the sun higher now, warming my face. Julian would handle the rest, file the papers, freeze their access, make sure they couldn't touch what was mine. I didn't need to fight. I just needed to keep moving forward. I climbed the stairs to my room, tossed my notebook on the desk, and stood by the window, watching the lake shimmer. They'd be loud for a while. I knew Vivian's rants, Lillian's tears, but it wouldn't change anything. I'd cut the threads they tied me up with, and for the first time in years, I was free. Not angry, not bitter, just done. I grabbed a bottle of water from the mini fridge, took a long drink, and sat down to work, a small coding job for a local guy. Nothing big. It felt good, normal, like I was building something new. The fight was theirs now, not mine. The divorce papers hit them like a brick through a window, and I didn't need to be there to know it. I was still in Lake Como, a month and a half into my new life, when the reactions started trickling in. I'd been keeping my phone on low, checking it once a day or so, just enough to stay connected without drowning in their noise. That morning, I was out on my balcony, the lake spread out below me like a postcard, a half-eaten croissant on the table next to my coffee. The air was crisp, the kind that wakes you up without trying, and I was feeling good, really good, until I saw the voicemail count. 7 from Vivian, all left in the last 12 hours. I didn't listen right away. I knew what I'd get, yelling, guilt trips, maybe some crocodile tears if she was feeling creative. I scrolled through my text instead, found one from Brielle. Papers landed yesterday. Vivian's losing her mind. Lillian's playing the victim again. Thought you'd want to know. I smiled a little, typed back. Thanks. Let me know if it gets wild, and set the phone down. Wild was an understatement. I'd find out later, but for now, I wanted to hear it straight from the source. I picked up the phone again, took a deep breath, and played the first voicemail. Vivian's voice came through sharp and loud, like she was standing right next to me. Cole, this is ridiculous. Divorce papers? You're tearing this family apart over a stupid trip. Call me back right now. Click. I deleted it, moved to the next. Same tone, angrier. You think you can just walk away like this? We're not done, mister. I'll fight this. Click. By the third one, she was rambling about lawyers and what people will think, and by the 7th, her voice cracked. This isn't how family works, Cole. You're destroying everything. I sat there, staring at the lake, and let that sink in. Destroying everything. Funny how she saw it that way. Me, the guy who'd paid their bills, fixed their messes, and taken their crap for years, was the one wrecking it all because I finally said no. I deleted the rest without listening and leaned back in my chair, the croissant going stale in the cool air. Family. That word used to mean something to me, but now it just sounded like a leash they kept yanking. My phone buzzed again, an email this time, from Lillian. I opened it, expecting more of her social media sob story, but it was short. Cole, can we just talk? Please. No apology, no explanation, just that. I read it twice, my thumb hovering over the reply button, then closed it. Talk? What was there to say? She'd had months, years, really, to talk, and instead she'd picked Jonah, Mark, and a stack of lies over me. I wasn't running back to fix her feelings. I set the phone face down and finished my coffee, the bitter taste grounding me. They could scream all they wanted. I wasn't budging. Later that day, Brielle sent more. She'd been my eyes back home, and I owed her for it. Vivian's telling everyone you've lost it, she wrote. Lillian's moping around, saying she never meant to hurt you. Ezra tried to call you out, said he'd deal with you if you ever came back. Julian shut him down with a cease and desist letter. It's a mess. I laughed out loud at that, sitting on a bench by the water. Ezra dealing with me? The guy couldn't deal with a bar tab. I pictured him puffing up his chest, all talk, until Julian's letter landed and scared him quiet. Good. I texted Brielle back. Appreciate it. Sounds like they're digging their own hole. She sent a thumbs up and a photo group chat screenshots where Lillian whined about losing everything and Vivian plotted to fix this. Brielle had even signed an affidavit for Julian, swearing to what she'd seen. The secret talks, the plans to humiliate me, all of it. I tucked my phone away and kept walking, the lake path winding through trees starting to turn gold with fall. Their regrets didn't move me. Not Vivian's voicemails, not Lillian's email, not Ezra's empty threats. They weren't sorry they'd hurt me. They were sorry they'd lost their meal ticket. I kicked a pine cone down the path and thought about how quiet they'd gotten online lately. No more big posts, no more poor me updates, just silence, like they knew the game was up. I didn't check to confirm. I didn't need to. I was done with their stage. I turned my focus back to me, swimming in the lake most mornings, the water cold and clear, waking me up in a way coffee never could. I'd started reading too, picking up paperbacks from a little shop in town. Old mysteries, nothing heavy, just stories to lose myself in. I even signed up for Italian lessons with a guy named Marco, a retired teacher who laughed at my accent, but kept me going. Piano, piano, he'd say, slowly, slowly, and I liked that. No rush, no pressure. I'd hike too, up through the olive groves above Como, the air smelling like earth and leaves, my legs burning by the end, but my head clear. I stopped by the water again, sat on a rock, and pulled out my notebook. They're yelling, I wrote. I'm not listening. This is my time now. I closed it, leaned back, and watched the sun dip lower, painting the lake orange. Vivian could leave 100 voicemails. Lillian could beg all she wanted. It didn't change the papers, the trust, the life I was building. I stood up, brushed off my jeans, and headed back to the hotel, the path familiar under my feet. My phone stayed quiet the rest of the day, and I liked it that way. I cooked a simple dinner. Pasta, some sauce from a jar, a glass of cheap wine, and ate on the balcony, the night settling in soft and cool. They'd regret it eventually, maybe even mean it someday, but I wasn't waiting around for that. I'd spent too long fixing their mistakes. Now, I was fixing me, swimming, reading, learning, walking, and it felt better than anything they'd ever given me. I finished the wine, set the glass down, and went to bed, the lake whispering outside. Their mess was theirs. I was free. Months slipped by in Lake Como, and I barely noticed the time passing until one day I looked at the calendar and realized it had been almost 6 since I'd left home. The divorce finalized quietly. No big courtroom drama. No shouting matches. Just a stack of papers signed and emailed to Julian from my little hotel desk. I didn't celebrate when he sent the confirmation. Didn't pop champagne or call anyone to gloat. I just sat there, staring at the lake through my window, and felt a kind of peace settle over me. Not loud or flashy, but steady, like the water outside. Lillian was gone from my life legally now, and her family with her, and I didn't need to rub it in. I'd won by walking away, not by fighting. I'd been building something new out here, piece by piece, and it was starting to feel like mine. I'd moved out of the hotel a couple months back, renting a small apartment in Milan instead, a one-bedroom place with a balcony, old wooden floors, and a view of a quiet street where kids played soccer until dark. It wasn't fancy, but it was enough, and I liked the hum of the city outside, different from Como's stillness. I bought it outright with some of the trust money, a clean break from the house back home I'd let Lillian keep in the settlement. I didn't want it anymore, too many memories, too much of their noise baked into the walls. Here, I could start fresh. I'd been working freelance too, picking up coding jobs for European clients, small stuff mostly, websites and apps, nothing that tied me down. It kept money coming in, kept my mind sharp, and let me set my own hours. I'd sit at my kitchen table, laptop open, a coffee going cold beside me, and lose myself in the work, the kind of focus I hadn't had in years. Back home, I'd always been interrupted, Lillian needing something, Vivian calling, Ezra dropping by unannounced. Now, it was just me, and I liked it that way. I wasn't hiding, though. I'd started going out, meeting people, letting life happen. I'd met Isadora at a market one Sunday, a local artist with dark eyes and a laugh that made me forget what I was saying mid-sentence. She sold paintings, bright, messy things full of color, and we'd gotten to talking when I stopped to look at one. "You're not from here," she'd said. Not a question, just a fact, and I'd nodded, told her I was American, starting over. She didn't pry, just smiled and asked if I'd ever tried painting. I hadn't, but I said yes anyway, and that turned into coffee, then dinner, then a few more dates. She wasn't Lillian, not even close. Isadora didn't lean on me, didn't expect me to fix her world. She just was, and that felt healthy, like a breath I didn't know I needed. We'd walk through Milan together, or pointing out old buildings, me stumbling over Italian phrases I'd picked up from Marco's lessons, and it was easy, no pressure. I didn't jump into anything serious too soon for that. But it was nice, casual, a reminder I could still feel something good. One afternoon, I logged back into social media, first time in weeks, just to see what was left of them. I'd unfollowed Lillian and her crew after the papers hit, but curiosity pulled me back. Her profile was public still, and there it was, a photo of her in Vivian's living room, boxes stacked around her, captioned, "New beginnings are hard, but I'm trying." I scrolled the comments, mostly pity from her friends, a few stay strong posts, but it was quieter than before, like the world had moved on. Vivian's page was the same, just a rant about ungrateful people that didn't name me but didn't have to. Mark was gone, no trace of him anywhere, probably off chasing someone else's wallet. Jonah, though, Brielle had texted me about him a while back, got arrested for fraud, some scam he'd been running on the side. I wasn't surprised. He'd always had that sleazy edge. The trip that wasn't had fractured them all, left them scattered, while I'd landed on my feet. I closed the app, leaned back in my chair, and looked out at the street below. Kids were kicking a ball against a wall, laughing, and I felt steady. I didn't need to post about my new life, didn't need to shove it in their faces. I was living it. That was enough. I'd been hiking more lately, taking trains out to the countryside, walking trails through hills dotted with olive trees and little villages. I'd swim when I could, finding lakes or pools, the water cold and sharp against my skin. I kept up the Italian lessons too, getting better, enough to order food or chat with shopkeepers without sounding like a total idiot. Marco would clap me on the back, say, "Bene, Cole, bene," and I'd grin, feeling like a kid who'd aced a test. I read a lot books I'd grabbed from secondhand shops, mostly stories about people starting over, which hit close but not too close. It was a life I'd built without them, and it fit me better than the old one ever had. I thought about Lillian sometimes, not with anger, just a kind of distant wonder, how she'd gone from the woman I'd loved to someone I didn't recognize. I didn't hate her, didn't hate any of them, really. They'd made their choices, and I'd made mine. I stood up, grabbed my jacket, and headed out to meet Isadora for coffee. She'd texted earlier, saying she'd found a new spot near the cathedral, and I was game. The walk was quick, the air turning cool with fall, and I found her at a table outside, sketching on a napkin. "You're late," she teased, and I laughed, sat down, ordered an espresso. We talked about nothing big, her art, my coding, the weather, and it was perfect. I didn't need more than that. Back home, they were stuck, fractured, picking up pieces I'd stopped carrying. Here, I was whole, building something real, and it was mine. One morning in Milan, about 8 months after I'd left everything behind, I woke up to a letter slipped under my apartment door. It wasn't fancy, no official stamp, no lawyer's logo, just a plain envelope with my name scratched across it in Lillian's handwriting. I stood there in my boxers, coffee pot gurgling in the kitchen behind me, and stared at it on the floor like it might bite. I hadn't heard from her directly in months, not since that email begging to talk, which I'd ignored, and I wasn't sure I wanted to now. The air smelled like espresso and the bread I'd left on the counter, and outside, the street was waking up with the clatter of bikes and voices. I picked up the letter, turned it over in my hands, and felt a flicker of something, not anger, not curiosity, just a kind of tired wondering. I poured my coffee, sat at the kitchen table, and opened it slow, like I was peeling back a bandage. Inside was a single page, her words neat but shaky. "Cole, I know you don't owe me anything, but I need to say this. You were right. I was cruel. I got caught up in stupid games with Mom and Jonah and Mark, and I didn't see what it did to you. You didn't deserve any of it. I'm sorry. If you ever want to talk, here's my number." She'd scribbled it at the bottom, same old number I deleted from my phone a lifetime ago. I read it twice, then folded it up and set it on the table next to my mug. The coffee steamed in the quiet, and I leaned back in my chair, staring at the ceiling. Sorry. After all that, the dinners with Jonah, the texts to Mark, the way she'd let her family shove me out of my own life, she was sorry. I didn't feel a rush of anything, no relief, no bitterness, just a flat kind of calm. I'd spent years waiting for her to see me, really see me, and now that she had, it didn't change a thing. I wasn't that guy anymore, the one who'd run back to fix her tears. I stood up, walked to the sink, and looked out at the street below, kids chasing a dog, an old lady carrying a basket of flowers. I thought about calling her, just for a second, imagining her voice on the line, soft and pleading. But what would I say? It's okay. It wasn't. I forgive you? I didn't, not fully, not yet. I didn't hate her, didn't wish her harm, but forgiveness wasn't mine to give anymore. I'd moved on, and she was still back there, stuck in the wreckage she'd helped build. I took the letter, folded it again, and slid it into a drawer with some old receipts and a spare key, out of sight, not thrown away, but not something I'd keep staring at either. I finished my coffee, rinsed the mug, and got dressed, jeans, a sweater, my boots scuffed from hiking. I had a job to finish today, a website for a local cafe owner, and then I was meeting Isadora for lunch. That was my life now, work I liked, people I chose, a rhythm that fit me. I grabbed my laptop bag, locked the door, and stepped out into the Milan morning, the air cool and sharp against my face. The letter stayed in my head as I walked, not heavy, just there, like a stone in my pocket. I wondered how she'd gotten my address, Brielle, maybe, or Julian, but it didn't matter. She'd reached out, said her piece, and I didn't owe her a reply. I bought the tickets for that Bermuda trip, paid for every detail, and when they tried to take it from me, I'd canceled it all. It wasn't just about the money, it was about me, about saying no for once and meaning it. I turned a corner, past a guy playing guitar for coins, and kept going, the city buzzing around me. Lillian's apology didn't pull me back. It just closed a chapter I'd already finished writing. I got to the cafe where I liked to work, ordered another espresso, and set up my laptop by the window. The owner waved, called me Senior Cole, with a grin, and I nodded back, feeling at home. I opened my code, started typing, and let the world fade, lines of logic, clean and simple, no drama, no lies. An hour later, my phone buzzed, a text from Isadora. Lunch at noon? New place by the park. I smiled, wrote back, see you there, and kept working. That was my day, quiet, mine, no one else's. I thought about the old me sometimes, the Cole who'd nod and pay and let them walk all over him. He was gone, not dead, just done. I'd taken that one-way ticket to Como, turned it into a life in Milan, and it was the best decision I'd ever made. I finished the job, sent it off, and headed to meet Isadora, the sun high now, warming the streets. She was waiting by a fountain, sketching on a pad, and waved when she saw me. You look happy, she said, and I shrugged, said, I am. We ate sandwiches on a bench, talked about our next painting, my next hike, nothing deep, just easy. Back home, they'd fallen apart, Lillian with her mom, Jonah in jail, Vivian ranting to an empty audience, but I didn't need to watch it. I'd heard enough from Brielle over the months, the family fractured, the trip a memory they couldn't rewrite. My story didn't end with a big showdown or a tearful reunion. It ended here, quiet, with me walking back to my apartment after lunch, the letter in the drawer where I'd left it. I didn't burn it, didn't frame it, just let it be. My name is Cole Archer, and I bought the tickets. I canceled them. I walked away. And now, I'm free, not loud about it, not showy, just living. I got home, kicked off my boots, and stood on my balcony, the city stretching out below. The sun dipped low, painting the sky gold, and I breathed it in. Peace. That's what it was. Pure, simple peace. I never thought life could turn out like this, standing in the middle of the Willowbend Country Club, surrounded by people who were supposed to be celebrating me. My name's Julian Hayes, and today's my 35th birthday. At least, that's what Mia told me when she insisted on throwing this party. I'd always been a simple guy, didn't need much to be happy. A quiet life, a good woman by my side, maybe a couple of kids running around someday. That's all I ever wanted. Willowbend seemed like the perfect place to build that dream. It's one of those small towns you see in movies, with tree-lined streets and friendly faces, the kind of place where everyone knows your name. When I met Mia Grant 3 years ago, I thought I'd hit the jackpot. She was stunning, long dark hair, bright green eyes, and a smile that could light up a room. But it wasn't just her looks. She had this sharpness about her, a way of seeing the world that pulled me in. Plus, she came from money. Her parents, Clive and Rosalind Grant, were big shots around here. They owned half the businesses on Main Street, hardware stores, cafes, even the little movie theater with the flickering sign. Me? I was just an outsider, a guy who'd clawed his way up from nothing. No fancy family name, no inheritance, just a knack for tech and a lot of hard work. I'd built my own consulting business from the ground up, helping small companies with their websites and systems. It wasn't glamorous, but it paid the bills. When Mia said she loved me for that, for my grit and my drive, I believed her. I thought we were a team. So when she suggested this birthday party, I didn't think much of it. "Let me spoil you for once," she'd said, brushing her hand across my cheek. "You deserve it, Julian." I'd smiled and nodded, figuring it'd be a nice night. Maybe a cake, some drinks, a few laughs with friends. I didn't need anything big, but Mia loved a good show. The Willowbend Country Club was her family's territory, polished wood floors, chandeliers dangling from the ceiling, waiters in crisp white shirts gliding around with trays of champagne. I'd been here before for her dad's business dinners, always feeling a little out of place among the suits and the small talk. But tonight was supposed to be different. Tonight was about me. I put on my best jacket, a dark blue one Mia picked out for me last Christmas, and drove over with a grin on my face. The parking lot was full, cars lined up like they were waiting for something big. I figured she'd gone all out, maybe invited some of the guys I worked with or the neighbors we'd had over for barbecues. I walked up the stone steps, nodded at the doorman, and stepped inside. The room was packed, just like I'd expected. I saw familiar faces, Tom from the hardware store, Lisa who ran the bakery, even my buddy Mike who'd helped me fix my truck last month. They were all dressed up, smiling, raising glasses like they were toasting something. I felt a little swell of pride in my chest. Mia had really pulled this off. I scanned the crowd for her, ready to pull her into a hug and thank her for making me feel so special. But then I stopped. Something wasn't right. The air felt heavy, like everyone was holding their breath. There were no balloons, no streamers, none of the usual birthday stuff. The big table in the center of the room caught my eye. No cake, no presents, just a stack of papers and a suitcase. My suitcase. The one I kept in the upstairs closet at home. My stomach twisted. I looked up, and there she was, Mia, standing tall and cold, her arms crossed. Next to her was some guy I didn't recognize, slick-looking with a suit that probably cost more than my car. Her parents were there too, Clive with his stern jaw and Rosalind with her pinched lips, staring at me like I was dirt on their shoes. The crowd went quiet. I felt every eye in the room on me, boring into my skin. "Happy birthday, Julian," Mia said, her voice flat as a board. Or maybe I should say goodbye. My heart started pounding, but my mind raced faster. What the hell was going on? I took a step forward, my hands clenching at my sides. This wasn't a party. This was a setup. And I wasn't about to let it end the way they wanted. I'd spent years building a life here, pouring everything I had into this marriage, this town. Mia knew that. She knew how much I'd given up to be with her, how I'd turned down job offers in the city because she wanted to stay close to her family. I'd trusted her, loved her, and now she was standing there like I was nothing, like I'd been some kind of hired help she could toss out when she was done. The guy next to her shifted, putting a hand on her shoulder, and I felt a hot spike of anger shoot through me. Who was he? What had she been doing behind my back? I glanced at the suitcase again, my clothes probably stuffed inside like garbage. The papers on the table, divorce papers, maybe? Or something worse. Clive stepped forward, his voice booming across the room. "It's time for you to go, Hayes. You've overstayed your welcome." The crowd murmured, some looking away, others leaning in like they were watching a damn soap opera. I could feel the heat rising in my face, the humiliation they wanted me to drown in. But I wasn't going to give them that. I straightened up, met Mia's eyes, and forced a smile. "A farewell party, huh?" I said, loud enough for everyone to hear. "Well, let's make it one they'll never forget." My hand slipped into my pocket, brushing against my phone. They thought they had me cornered. They thought I'd just slink away. But I'd learned a thing or two about survival. And I wasn't leaving without a fight. I stood there in the middle of the Willowbend Country Club, my heart hammering in my chest like it was trying to break free. The air felt thick, suffocating, as every pair of eyes locked onto me. Mia's words still echoed in my head. "Your job is done. Leave now." Cold and sharp, like she'd rehearsed them. The giant red banner overhead screamed, "Farewell Party," in bold letters, mocking me. No balloons, no birthday cake, Just a table with my suitcase and a stack of papers that I knew spelled trouble. My suitcase, packed and ready, like they'd planned this down to the minute. And Mia, standing there with that stranger, his hand resting on her arm like he owned her. Her family flanked her, Clive with his smug grin, Rosalind with her icy stare, and a dozen other faces I recognized from town, all part of this twisted show. I could feel the weight of their judgment, their expectation that I'd crumble, grab my bag, and slink out the door like a whipped dog. My hand stayed steady, though, even as my mind raced. I wasn't going to give them the satisfaction. Not tonight. Not ever. The room was dead silent, waiting for me to react. I could see Mike in the corner, shifting uncomfortably, probably wondering why he'd even shown up. Lisa from the bakery had her hand over her mouth, like she couldn't believe what she was seeing. These were people I'd lived with, worked with, laughed with, and now they were here to watch me get tossed out like yesterday's trash. I looked at Mia again, searching her face for something, anything, that might explain this. We'd been married for 2 years. 2 years of building a home, sharing a bed, talking about our future. She'd always said she loved how I wasn't like her family, how I wasn't obsessed with money or status. Was that all a lie? Her green eyes met mine, but there was nothing there. No guilt, no softness, just a wall. The guy next to her smirked, adjusting his tie like he was bored. Who was he? Some rich buddy of her dad's? A lover? The thought made my stomach churn, but I pushed it down. I wasn't going to let them see me crack. Clive cleared his throat, stepping closer, his voice cutting through the quiet. You heard her, Julian. Time to go. Don't make this harder than it needs to be. Harder for who? For them? I almost laughed. They'd turned my birthday into a public execution, and he had the nerve to act like I was the inconvenience. I glanced at the suitcase again. It was the old brown one I'd brought when I moved in with Mia, the one she'd teased me about, because it was scratched and worn. Seeing it there, packed up and waiting, hit me harder than her words. They'd gone into our house, my house, and rifled through my stuff while I was out, clueless, thinking I was headed to a party. How long had they been planning this? Days? Weeks? I thought about the last few months, her late nights, her excuses, the way she'd stopped touching me. It all clicked, but I wasn't ready to process it yet. Not here, not in front of them. I took a slow breath, feeling the anger bubble up, hot and steady. My fingers flexed at my sides, itching to do something, anything, to wipe that smug look off Clive's face. But I wasn't a fighter, not with my fists. I'd always been the guy who thought things through, who found a way to turn the tables. And right now, they thought they had me beat. They thought I'd just bow my head and walk away. I let my gaze sweep the room, taking in the crowd, some curious, some uncomfortable, some outright enjoying the drama. Then I locked eyes with Mia again and smiled. Not a big grin, just a small, tight one, the kind that says I've got something up my sleeve. A farewell party, I said, my voice steady, loud enough to carry. That's what you're calling this? Fine. Then let's start the real farewell party. I could see her flinch, just for a second, before her mask slipped back into place. Clive frowned, his bushy eyebrows knitting together, and Rosalind muttered something under her breath. They weren't expecting me to talk back. They thought I'd be too stunned, too broken. But I'd spent my whole life being the underdog, growing up with nothing, scraping by, building my business from scratch. I didn't fold easy. My hand slipped into my pocket, brushing against my phone. I'd always been good with tech, better than most people knew. It was how I'd made my living, how I'd caught Mia's eye in the first place when I fixed her dad's company website years ago. And lately, I've been using it for something else, something they didn't know about. I'd been watching, listening, collecting. Not because I wanted to, but because I had to. Because I'd felt her pulling away, and I wasn't dumb enough to ignore it. Then let's start the real farewell party, I repeated, softer this time, almost to myself. I could feel the shift in the room, the way people leaned in, waiting to see what I'd do. Mia's new guy, whatever his name was, crossed his arms, like he was daring me to make a move. Clive took another step toward me, his face red now, like he was ready to drag me out himself. Don't be stupid, Hayes, he growled. Take your bag and get out. I didn't budge. My mind was spinning, piecing together what I could do, right here, right now. I didn't have everything ready, not yet, but I had enough. Enough to make them sweat. Enough to show them I wasn't the pushover they thought I was. I pulled my phone out, holding it up so they could see it, and watched their expressions change. Mia's eyes narrowed. Clive froze. Rosalind's hand went to her necklace, clutching it like a lifeline. You think you're in control here, I said, keeping my voice calm, even as my pulse raced. You think you can just kick me out and that's the end of it. But this isn't your party anymore. It's mine. I tapped the screen once, just to test them, and saw Mia's jaw tighten. She knew I was up to something, but she didn't know what. Not yet. The crowd was buzzing now, whispers spreading like wildfire. I could feel their energy shifting, some of them starting to doubt the grants, starting to wonder if maybe I wasn't the fool they'd painted me as. I lowered the phone, slipping it back into my pocket. You want me gone? I said, looking straight at Mia. You're gonna have to work for it. And with that, I turned toward the table, grabbed the stack of papers, and started flipping through them. Divorce papers, just like I'd guessed. But there was more financial stuff, things with my name on them I didn't recognize. My blood ran cold, but I kept my face blank. They weren't just kicking me out. They were setting me up, and I was going to make them regret it. I stood there in the Willowbend Country Club, the stack of papers still in my hands, my eyes scanning the words that felt like a punch to the gut. Divorce papers, sure, but also documents with my name tied to things I'd never signed, bank accounts, property deals, stuff that screamed trouble. Mia and her family weren't just dumping me. They were trying to bury me. The crowd around me was buzzing, a low hum of whispers and shifting feet. But I tuned it out. My mind was racing back, piecing together the last few months, the signs I'd ignored because I didn't want to believe it. I'd always trusted Mia, loved her even when she started pulling away. But now, looking at her standing there with that stranger, her parents backing her up like a wall of steel, I knew I'd been blind. Not anymore. What they didn't know, what none of them knew, was that I'd seen this coming. Not the party, not this exact moment, but the shift, the coldness. And I'd done something about it. I'd been digging, watching, recording. And tonight, that was going to save me. It started a few months ago, maybe 4 or 5. Mia began acting different. She'd always been busy. Her family's businesses kept her running around, but it got worse. She'd come home late, hair messy, eyes avoiding mine. Work, she'd say, waving me off when I asked. Just family stuff. I'd nod, pour her a glass of wine, try to keep things normal. But then she stopped sleeping in our bed. I toss and turn too much, she'd said, moving to the guest room down the hall. I'd lie awake at night, staring at the ceiling, hearing her voice through the walls, soft, secretive, talking on the phone. I told myself it was nothing, that I was overthinking it. But my gut wouldn't let it go. I'm not the jealous type, never have been. I built my life on logic, on figuring things out. Tech was my world, after all. So I started paying attention. Little things at first. How she'd lock her phone when I walked into the room. How her work excuses didn't add up. She'd say she was at her dad's office, but I'd drive by and see the lights off. Then there were the looks Clive gave me, sharp and dismissive, like I was in the way. Rosalind stopped inviting me to their fancy dinners. It all piled up, and I couldn't ignore it anymore. So I did what I do best. I got smart. I didn't confront her, didn't yell or beg for answers. I went quiet, started digging. I'm good with computers, better than Mia ever realized. She thought I just fixed websites, but I knew how to track things, how to find what people tried to hide. I put a little recorder in the guest room one night when she was out, nothing fancy, just a cheap thing I picked up online. I felt sick doing it, like I was crossing a line, but I had to know. The first time I listened, it was just her laughing, talking to someone about plans. Then I heard his name, Caleb Morris. I didn't know him then, but I found out quick. He was her dad's investment partner, some slick guy who'd moved to town a year ago. I'd seen him at a couple of Grant family events, always in a suit, always smiling too much. The recordings kept coming, her giggling with him, whispering about me like I was a joke. Julian's so clueless, she'd said once. He'll never see it coming. My hand shook when I heard that, but I kept going. I hacked into her email, not proud of it, but I did. Found messages between her and Caleb, flirty at first, then worse. Meetings at hotels. Pictures. I wanted to throw up, but I saved it all. Then I went deeper. I started looking at Grant Holdings, her family's company. Mia had put my name on some of their accounts when we got married. Said it was a partnership, a way to tie me into the family. I'd been flattered. Signed where she told me to. Dumb move. Now I saw why. Shell companies, fake land deals, money moving through accounts with my signature on them. They were using me as a shield, a fall guy if things went south. I found Clive's voice on one recording, bragging to Caleb about how they'd clean it up with my name. Hayes won't know what hit him, he'd said. I backed it all up, every file, every clip, on a hard drive I kept hidden in my truck. I didn't know what I'd do with it, not exactly. I just knew I wasn't going to let them win. Not after everything I'd given them, my trust, my time, my life. Tonight, standing here with those papers in my hands, it all made sense. The farewell party wasn't just about kicking me out of the marriage, it was about kicking me out of everything, leaving me to take the blame for their mess. I looked up at Mia, her face hard and unreadable. The guy next to her, Caleb, I realized now shifted, watching me like I was a bug he wanted to squash. Clive was still glaring, Rosalind clutching her pearls like I'd offended her delicate sensibilities. The crowd was restless, waiting for me to break. But I wouldn't. I set the papers back on the table, slow and deliberate, letting them see I wasn't rattled. My mind was clear now, sharper than it had been in months. I'd been preparing for this, even if I didn't know it had happened tonight. Every snide remark Mia made, every secret call she thought I didn't hear, I'd caught it all. I had proof, evidence, power. You think you've got this all figured out? I said, keeping my voice low but firm, loud enough for Mia and her family to hear. You think I'm just gonna walk away and let you pin this on me? Mia's eyes flickered, just for a second, like she wasn't sure what I meant. Clive snorted, crossing his arms. You don't have a choice, Hayes, he said. It's done. I smiled again, that same tight smile from before. That's where you're wrong, I said. I've been ready for this. For months. I patted my pocket where my phone sat, loaded with everything I'd collected, recordings, emails, screenshots. They didn't know yet, but they would. This wasn't just a breakup. This was war. And I'd been building my weapons in the dark, waiting for the right moment. Tonight was it. My trigger. I took a step back, letting the tension hang, feeling the crowd lean in. They wanted a show? I'd give them one. But it wasn't going to end the way the Grants expected. Not by a long shot. I stood there in the Willowbend Country Club, the air crackling with tension, my hand resting on my phone like it was a loaded gun. The crowd was a blur of faces, some shocked, some confused, all waiting to see what I'd do next. Mia's eyes were locked on me, narrow and suspicious, like she was finally realizing I wasn't the pushover she'd counted on. Caleb stood beside her, his smug grin fading just a little. Clive and Rosalind were still in their firing squad formation, thinking they had me cornered with their little farewell party stunt. My suitcase sat on the table, the papers next to it screaming their plan. Divorce me, dump me, pin their dirty deals on me. But they didn't know what I had in my pocket. Months of work, months of watching them when they thought I was asleep or too dumb to notice. Recordings, emails, proof. And now, with every eye in the room on me, it was time to pull the trigger. I wasn't just going to walk away. I was going to turn their game upside down. I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the moment settle on my shoulders. My fingers slid over my phone, pulling it out slow and deliberate. The giant screen on the wall behind the table, usually used for golf tournament scores or wedding slideshows, was about to become my weapon. I'd hacked into the club's system a while back, just a little side project when I was bored one weekend. Never thought I'd use it like this. With one tap, I connected my phone to the projector and the screen flickered to life. A grainy video popped up, loud and clear. Mia and Caleb, tangled up in our bedroom, laughing like it was some big joke. Her voice cut through the speakers, sharp and familiar. Julian's out tonight. We've got ours. Gasps rippled through the crowd. I didn't look at her, didn't need to. I could feel her stare burning into me, hot and furious. Another tap, and the video switched. Clive this time, sitting in his office, his voice booming as he bragged to someone off-screen. We've got the land locked up. Paid off the inspector last week. Hayes' name's on the deed. He'll take the fall if it blows up. More gasps, louder now. The room was alive, buzzing with shock and whispers. I turned to Mia, keeping my face calm, even as my heart pounded. You planned this, she hissed, her voice low but shaking. For months, I said, loud enough for everyone to hear. And now it's live-streamed. Over 500 people watching online, last I checked. Her eyes went wide, and I saw the panic hit her. Clive lunged forward, his face red as a tomato. Turn that off, Hayes. You've got no right. But I held up a hand, cutting him off. I've got every right, I said. This is my party now. The door swung open then, and Dana Roth walked in, my lawyer, my ace in the hole. She was a short woman, barely 5 feet, but she carried herself like she owned the place. Her dark hair was pulled back tight, and she had a folder in one hand, court orders in the other. The crowd parted as she strode up to me, her heels clicking on the polished floor. "Mr. Hayes is here to renegotiate everything," she said, her voice cool and sharp, aimed straight at the Grants. "And you'll want to listen." The room exploded into chaos. People were talking over each other, some pulling out their phones to record, others just staring like they couldn't believe it. Rosalind grabbed Mia's arm, whispering something frantic, but Mia shook her off, her face pale. Caleb took a step back, like he wanted to disappear. I watched it all unfold, feeling a strange calm settle over me. This was it, the moment I'd been building toward without even knowing it. Dana set her folder on the table, flipping it open to show a stack of papers. Legal stuff? Evidence I'd handed her last week when I finally admitted what I'd found. "You thought you could use Julian as your patsy," she said, looking at Clive. "But he's been smarter than you from the start. We've got recordings, financial records, emails. Enough to bury you." Clive sputtered, his mouth opening and closing like a fish. "This is outrageous. You can't." "Oh, we can," Dana cut in. "And we will." I stepped forward, picking up where she left off. "You wanted me gone," I said, my voice steady, carrying over the noise. "You wanted me to take the blame for your scams, your lies. But I've got it all. Every word you said, every move you made. And now the whole town knows." I pointed at the screen, where Clive's voice was still looping, admitting to payoffs and fraud. People were filming it, sharing it. I could see the numbers ticking up on my phone. 700 viewers now, 800. Mia's hands were shaking, and for the first time, she looked small, like the weight of her own mess was crushing her. "Julian," she said, her voice cracking. "You don't have to do this." I almost laughed. "You did this," I said. "You and your family. I'm just showing everyone the truth." Dana tapped the court orders on the table. "These freeze your assets, pending investigation," she said to Clive. In this one, she held up another paper, grants Mr. Hayes immediate access to all joint accounts you put in his name. He's not leaving empty-handed. The crowd was roaring now, some cheering, some shouting questions. I caught Mike's eye across the room. He gave me a nod, like he was proud. Lisa was smiling, her phone out, filming the whole thing. I'd gone from the guy they pitted to the guy fighting back, and they were eating it up. Clive tried to argue, his voice hoarse. "This is slander." "I'll see you. Go ahead," Dana said, smirking. "We've got more than enough to counter it." I watched him deflate, his shoulders slumping. Rosalind was crying now, quiet little sobs, but I didn't feel sorry for her. Not after what they tried to do to me. I turned back to the screen, letting the footage play. Every second was another nail in their coffin, and I wasn't stopping it. My phone buzzed, 1,000 viewers now. Word was spreading fast. I leaned in close to Mia, keeping my voice low so only she could hear. "You should have known better," I said. "I don't break easy." She didn't say anything, just stared at me like she was seeing me for the first time. Maybe she was. I stepped back, letting Dana take over, her voice cutting through the chaos like a blade. "We're just getting started," she said to the Grants. "You'll hear from us, and the police very soon." I stood there, watching it all, feeling the power shift. They'd thrown me a fake party to get rid of me, but I turned it into their downfall. And I wasn't done yet. I watched the Willowbend Country Club erupt around me, the chaos I'd unleashed swirling like a storm. The giant screen still flickered with Clive's voice admitting to fraud, Mia's affair with Caleb playing on a loop for anyone with a phone to see. Over 1,000 people were watching online now, and the room was a mess of shouts, gasps, and flashing cameras. My lawyer, Dana Roth, stood beside me, cool as ice, her court orders spread out on the table like a winning hand. My suitcase and those fake papers were still there, but they didn't matter anymore. This wasn't about me leaving. It was about them losing. Mia's face was white, her hands clenched into fists, and for the first time, I saw fear in her eyes. Caleb had backed off, hovering near the edge of the crowd like he could slip away unnoticed. Clive was yelling, his voice hoarse, while Rosalind tried to pull herself together, dabbing at her tears with a napkin. The crowd was feeding off it, some horrified, some cheering, all of them hooked on the drama. And me? I felt alive, like I'd finally taken back what they'd tried to steal. Dana flipped through her folder, her voice cutting through the noise. "Mia, you've been misusing joint assets for months," she said, holding up a bank statement with my name on it. "You funneled money into shell companies, thinking Julian wouldn't notice. But he did. And under state law, that entitles him to a spousal transfer, 30% of Grant Holdings is his now. The words hit like a bomb. Mia lunged at me, her nails out like claws. You think you're clever? She spat, her voice shaking with rage. I stepped aside, keeping my cool, letting her stumble past me. No, I said, meeting her glare. Just thorough. She froze, breathing hard, like she couldn't believe I'd turned the tables. Clive tried to storm out, shoving through the crowd, but the doors swung open again, and 2 police officers walked in. Mr. Grant, one of them said, his voice flat. You're wanted for questioning in connection with corporate fraud. Let's go. Clive stopped dead, his face going slack. Reporters were already there, snapping photos, their flashes lighting up the room like fireworks. I picked up the divorce papers from the table, grabbed a pen from Dana, and signed them right there, my terms attached, not theirs. The crowd surged, people pushing closer, yelling questions at the Grants. Is it true? Someone shouted. Did you set him up? Another voice called. I didn't answer. Just let the evidence speak for itself. Dana handed me a copy of the signed papers, her eyes gleaming. You've got them on the ropes, she said, low enough for only me to hear. They thought this marriage was a financial strategy, a way to use you as their front. Now they're paying for it. I nodded, feeling the weight of the moment settle in. I'd walked in here thinking I was getting a birthday party, and instead, I'd been handed a knife in the back. But I turned it around, stabbed them with their own blade. Rosalind tried to shout over Dana, her voice shrill. This is nonsense. We'll fight this. But Dana just smiled, calm and deadly. Go ahead, she said. We've got more where this came from. I looked at Mia again, watching her unravel. She'd always been the strong one, the one who held it together, but now she was cracking. Julian, she said, softer this time, almost pleading. You don't have to destroy us. I tilted my head, studying her. You destroyed us, I said. The second you started lying, sneaking around, planning this. I'm just cleaning up the mess. Her lips trembled, but she didn't argue. She couldn't. The truth was out there, playing on that screen, spreading across the internet. Caleb muttered something to her, but she ignored him, her eyes still on me. I didn't care about him. He was just a pawn in their game, same as I'd been. But I wasn't a pawn anymore. I was the one calling the shots. The cops moved in, guiding Clive toward the door. He didn't resist, just shuffled along, his head down. Rosalind followed, still clutching her napkin, her sobs louder now. The reporters swarmed them, microphones out, questions flying. Mr. Grant, did you falsify records? Mrs. Grant, what about the charity funds? I stayed where I was, letting it happen. The crowd was splitting, some trailing after the Grants, others clustering around me and Dana. Mike pushed through, clapping me on the shoulder. Man, I didn't know you had this in you, he said, grinning. You just took down the whole damn family. I shrugged, managing a small smile. They took themselves down. I just lit the match. Dana tapped the table, drawing my attention back. This is just the start, she said. We've got the asset freeze, the equity stake, and the police on their tail. They're done. I looked at the divorce papers in my hand, my signature fresh on the page. I'd added terms, half the house, full control of my business accounts, no alimony for her. She'd get nothing but the wreckage she'd made. It felt good, signing it, like I was cutting a chain I hadn't known was there. The room was still loud, people talking over each other, phones buzzing with notifications. I caught Lisa's eye. She gave me a thumbs up, her camera still rolling. The live stream was at 2,000 viewers now, maybe more. Willowbend was small, but this was going viral, spreading beyond the town limits. I'd wanted a quiet life, but they'd forced me into this fight. And I was winning. Mia took a step toward me, her voice barely audible over the noise. Julian, please. We can talk about this. I shook my head, folding the papers and tucking them under my arm. Too late, I said. You wanted me out. Now you're out. She flinched, and for a second, I almost felt bad. Almost. But then I remembered the recordings, her laughing with Caleb, calling me clueless, planning this night. I remembered the suitcase, the way they'd humiliated me in front of everyone I knew. No, I didn't feel bad. I felt free. The cops were at the door now, Clive in tow, Rosalind trailing behind. The reporters kept snapping pictures, the crowd kept buzzing. I turned to Dana. What's next? I asked. She grinned, closing her folder. We burn it all down, she said. Legally, of course. I nodded, feeling the fire in my chest grow. They'd started this war, but I was going to finish it. One way or another, the grants were done, and I was just getting started. I walked out of the Willowbend Country Club into the cool night air, the chaos of the farewell party still ringing in my ears. The police had hauled Clive away, Rosalind trailing after him with her head down, while reporters chased them with cameras flashing like lightning. Inside, Mia was left standing there, shell-shocked, Caleb nowhere to be seen. My phone buzzed in my pocket. 3,000 viewers now, maybe more, watching the Grants' empire start to crumble live online. Dana clapped me on the back as we hit the parking lot, her grin sharp and satisfied. "You did it, Julian," she said, her voice low but proud. "They thought they could bury you, but you just flipped the whole game." I nodded, feeling the weight of the signed divorce papers in my hand. My terms locked in. 30% of Grant Holdings was mine now, their assets frozen, and the police sniffing around. The town was buzzing. Willowbend hadn't seen a shakeup like this in years. Half the people couldn't believe I'd taken down the mighty Grants, me, the outsider with no fancy name or deep pockets. But others, the ones they'd stepped on over the years, were starting to talk. And I wasn't done yet. The next few days were a blur. Word spread fast, too fast to keep up with. My phone wouldn't stop ringing. Old clients, neighbors, even guys I hadn't talked to since high school, all wanting to know what happened. I didn't answer most of them. I was too busy with Dana, locked in her office downtown, plotting our next move. We'd started with the live stream, but that was just the spark. Now we were pouring gas on the fire. "Class action lawsuit," Dana said, spreading papers across her desk. "We've got at least a dozen former Grant employees ready to sign on people they fired or cheated out of wages. Plus, small business owners they strong-armed into bad deals." I leaned back in my chair, taking it in. I'd known the Grants were ruthless, but hearing it laid out like that, names, dates, dollar amounts, made it real. "And the audits?" I asked. She smirked. "Full financial audits on Grant Holdings kicked off this morning. State investigators are all over it. Those shell companies with your name? They're unraveling fast." I thought about the town, how it had been under their thumb for so long. Willowbend was picture perfect on the outside, neat lawns, cozy shops, kids riding bikes down Main Street. But the Grants had owned it, quietly squeezing people dry. I'd seen it myself, working with clients they'd bullied into overpriced contracts or shady loans. I'd kept quiet back then, figuring it wasn't my fight. Now it was. Dana slid a list across the desk, offshore accounts tied to Clive, millions stashed away. "Found these yesterday," she said. "Rosalind's charity funds too, supposed to help single moms, but most of it went in her personal shopping sprees." I shook my head, disgust curling in my gut. "They're done," I said. "Not yet," Dana replied. "But we're close." Mia tried to play the victim card that week. I saw her on the local news, standing outside their mansion, eyes red like she'd been crying. "I've been betrayed too," she said, her voice shaky. "Julian's twisting everything. I just want to move forward." I turned off the TV, tossing the remote on the couch. She could cry all she wanted. Caleb had bolted, probably halfway across the state by now, and her reputation was trash. No one bought it. Not after the recordings, the emails, the proof I'd blasted out for the world to see. I'd moved out of our house by then, crashing at a cheap motel on the edge of town. Didn't need much, just a bed, a shower, and a place to think. The house was mine now, legally, but I couldn't stay there. Too many memories, Mia cooking dinner, us laughing on the porch, all of it tainted now. I'd sell it later, once the dust settled. People started coming to me, quiet at first. A guy named Marcus stopped by the motel one morning, hat in hand. He'd worked for Grant Holdings as an accountant until they fired him for asking too many questions. "I saw what you did," he said, shifting on his feet. "I've got files, stuff they told me to shred. Can I help?" I nodded, told him to talk to Dana. Then there was Sarah, who ran a flower shop Clive had forced into a lease she couldn't afford. "They threatened to shut me down," she said, her voice trembling. "I've got nothing left to lose." By the end of the week, we had a small army, people the Grants had crushed, ready to fight back. I wasn't the outsider anymore. I was the guy who'd stood up, the one they could trust. It felt strange, being that person, but it fit. Dana and I kept pushing. The asset freezes hit hard. Clive's fancy cars got impounded, their mansion locked down. Rosalind's charity was shut pending investigation, and the town started turning. I'd walk down Main Street and get nods, smiles, even a good job, pays from Tom at the hardware store. The Grant's name was poisoned now. People stopped shopping at their stores, canceled contracts. Mia called me once, late at night, her number popping up on my phone. I let it ring, watching it until it went to voicemail. "Julian, we need to talk," she said, her voice small. "Please." I deleted it. She didn't get to beg now, not after what she'd done. I wasn't angry anymore, just done. Done with her, with them, with being their tool. By Friday, the legal counteroffensive was in full swing. Dana filed the class action, naming me as lead plaintiff. "This isn't just about you anymore," she said, handing me the paperwork. "It's about everyone they hurt." I signed it, feeling the weight of those names: Marcus, Sarah, dozens more. We were tearing down the Grants' empire, brick by brick. The audits uncovered more fake invoices, tax evasion, payoffs to local officials. The police were building a case, and Clive wasn't getting out of it this time. I sat in my motel room that night, staring at the ceiling, thinking about how far I'd come. A week ago, I'd been the guy walking into a trap, thinking I was getting a birthday party. Now I was a threat, a name they feared. I wasn't finished, not by a long shot. The Grants had ruled this town for years, but their time was up, and I was the one holding the match, ready to burn the rest of it down. I sat in the Willowbend courthouse, the wooden bench hard under me, the air thick with tension and the faint smell of old paper. The room was packed, every seat taken, people standing along the walls, whispering and craning their necks to see. 2 weeks had passed since the farewell party, and now we were here, facing off in court. Mia sat across the room, her green eyes hollow, her hands folded tight in her lap. She'd filed to contest the divorce terms I'd signed that night. My terms, the ones that gave me the house, 30% of Grant Holdings, and left her with nothing. Bad move on her part. Dana was next to me, calm and ready, a stack of evidence piled on the table in front of us, recordings, emails, ledgers, all the dirt I'd collected over months. I adjusted my tie, feeling the eyes of the town on me. This wasn't just about me and Mia anymore. It was bigger. The Grants' former employees were there, wearing little pins with JH on them, a quiet show of support. Even the new mayor, a guy who'd waited years for the Grants to slip, sat in the back, watching. I took a deep breath and leaned forward, ready to fight. The judge, a stern woman with gray hair pulled into a bun, banged her gavel, and the room went quiet. Mia's lawyer stood first, a slick guy in a suit that screamed money. He started spinning a story, how I'd fabricated evidence, how Mia was a victim of my vendetta, how the divorce terms were unfair. I almost laughed. Dana didn't even flinch, just waited her turn. When she stood, the air shifted. "Your Honor," she said, her voice clear and steady, "we're not here to argue stories. We're here with facts." She held up the first piece, a recording of Mia and Caleb, dated 6 months back, plotting to move money through accounts with my name. The courtroom speakers crackled to life, her voice filling the space. "Julian won't check. He trusts me." The judge's eyebrows went up, and I saw Mia sink lower in her seat. Dana kept going, pulling out emails between Clive and Mia, laying out how they'd used me as a front for their shady deals. "This wasn't a marriage," Dana said. "It was a setup, and Mr. Hayes has the proof." I watched the crowd react, nods, murmurs, a few gasps. The pins with my initials glinted under the fluorescent lights, and I felt a swell of something: pride, maybe, or just relief that people were finally seeing the truth. Mia's lawyer tried to interrupt, claiming the recordings were illegal, but Dana shut him down fast. "All obtained within Mr. Hayes' legal rights on his own property," she said, sliding a document to the judge. "Next objection?" The guy sat down, red-faced. Then it was my turn. Dana nodded at me, and I stood, feeling every eye in the room lock onto me. I wasn't nervous. Maybe I should have been, but I wasn't. I'd spent months in the dark, gathering this stuff, and now it was time to say it out loud. I cleared my throat and started talking. "I didn't want this," I said, my voice steady, carrying across the room. "I came to Willowbend for a quiet life. I met Mia, fell in love, thought we were building something real. But she used me. Her family used me. They put my name on their scams, cheated on me, disrespected me in our own home. I trusted her, and she laughed about it behind my back." I paused, letting that sink in. The judge was listening, her pen still. "I didn't fake anything," I went on. "I recorded what I heard, saved what I found, because I had to protect myself. They planned to kick me out, pin their mess on me, and walk away clean. That farewell party was their big finish. But I turned it around, and I'm not sorry." I glanced at Mia. She wouldn't look at me, her head down, her hands twisting in her lap. The crowd was silent, hanging on every word. Dana took over again, laying out the financials, how Mia had drained our joint accounts, how Grant Holdings' profits were tied to fraud, how my 30% stake was fair under the law. Mr. Hayes isn't asking for revenge, she said. He's asking for what's his. The judge nodded, scribbling notes. Mia's lawyer tried to fight back, dragging out bank statements he claimed showed I'd agreed to everything. Dana countered with timestamps, proof I'd been at work when those transfers happened, proof Mia had forged my signature. It was airtight. I sat back down, watching it unfold, feeling the tide turn. The town was listening, not just the judge, but everyone. People who'd known me as the quiet tech guy were seeing me different now. The pins, the nods, the way Marcus caught my eye from the back and grinned, it all said the same thing. I wasn't alone. The hearing stretched into the afternoon, then the next day. Mia took the stand, her voice shaky, trying to sell her victim act. I didn't know what my father was doing, she said, tears in her eyes. Julian's blowing this out of proportion. But Dana didn't let it slide. She played another recording, Mia laughing with Clive about keeping Julian in the dark. The tears dried up fast, and the judge's face hardened. By the end of week 2, it was over. Public opinion had flipped, newspapers ran headlines like Grant's exposed and Outsider strikes back. The mayor even shook my hand outside the courthouse one day, saying, "You've done us a favor, Hayes." I didn't care about favors. I cared about winning. The courtroom was quieter now, the big moment's done, just waiting for the judge to wrap it up. I looked around, taking it in, the people wearing my initials, the empty spot where Clive should have been if he wasn't in custody, Mia sitting alone, her lawyer whispering in her ear. She'd lost her edge, her power. The Grants weren't untouchable anymore. They were broken, laid bare for everyone to see. I'd walked in here a target, but I was walking out something else. Not a hero, maybe, but a man who'd fought and won. Dana leaned over, her voice low. "She's got nothing left to throw at us," she said. "This is yours." I nodded, feeling the weight lift just a little. The war wasn't over. Clive and Rosalind still had their own battles coming, but this part was mine. The judge banged her gavel again, calling for order, and I sat up straight. Whatever she said next, I was ready. They tried to take everything from me, but I'd taken it back. And then some. I sat in the Willow Bend courthouse, the same hard bench under me, the same crowd packed in tight, but today felt different. It was the final day, the moment we'd been building toward for weeks. The judge's gavel hung in the air, ready to drop, and every eye was on her. Mia sat across the room, her face pale, her hands gripping the edge of the table like it was the only thing holding her up. Her lawyer had run out of tricks. Dana had dismantled every lie, every excuse, with cold, hard proof. My recordings, my emails, my months of quiet work had paid off. The town was watching, not just in the courtroom, but online, on the news, everywhere. The Grants' empire was crumbling, and I was the one who'd swung the hammer. I adjusted my jacket, feeling the weight of the divorce papers I'd signed that night at the club, my terms locked in. This was it, the verdict, the fall, and I was ready to walk away with my head high. The judge cleared her throat, her voice cutting through the hum of the room. After reviewing the evidence and testimony, she said, "I'm prepared to rule." I leaned forward, my hands resting on my knees. Dana gave me a small nod, her eyes steady. On the matter of the divorce, the judge went on, Mr. Hayes' terms stand. The marital home is awarded to him in full, as is 30% equity in Grant Holdings, per spousal transfer laws, and the documented misuse of joint assets by Mrs. Hayes. A murmur rippled through the crowd. Mia's head dropped, her shoulders shaking. Mrs. Hayes' request for alimony is denied, the judge added, her tone flat. No further financial claims will be entertained, given the evidence of fraud and infidelity. I let out a breath I didn't know I'd been holding. It was done. She got nothing, no money, no stake, no sympathy. Just the mess she'd made. The judge wasn't finished. As for Grant Holdings, she said, flipping a page, the 30% equity awarded to Mr. Hayes remains intact. The company is under state investigation, and all assets remain frozen pending outcome. That hit hard. Clive and Rosalind weren't here, already indicted and dealing with their own legal hell, but this sealed it. Their empire was locked down, and I owned a chunk of it. The crowd buzzed louder, people whispering, some clapping. I caught Marcus' eye. He flashed a grin, his JH pin shining. The judge banged her gavel, calling for quiet. "This court finds no merit in the contest filed by Mrs. Hayes," she said. Case closed. The bang echoed, final and sharp, and just like that, it was over. I stood up slow, feeling the room shift around me. Dana clapped me on the shoulder. "You're a free man, Julian," she said, her voice warm. "And a damn powerful one." I nodded, managing a small smile. Free. It didn't feel real yet, not after everything, but it was true. I'd walked into that fake party a month ago with nothing but a suitcase and a setup, and now I was walking out with my life back, plus some. Mia didn't move at first, just sat there, staring at the table. Her lawyer muttered something, but she waved him off. The crowd was breaking up, people spilling into the aisles, talking over each other. Reporters were already outside. I could see their shadows through the windows, waiting to pounce. I didn't care. Let them write what they wanted. The truth was out. I started toward the door, Dana at my side, when Mia's voice stopped me. "Julian," she called, soft and broken. I turned, meeting her eyes. She looked small, fragile, nothing like the woman who'd stood so tall at that party. "Can we talk?" she asked, stepping closer. The room quieted a little, people watching. I studied her, those green eyes I used to love, now red and tired. Part of me wanted to hear her out, to see if she'd apologize, explain, anything. But then I remembered the recordings, her laughing with Caleb, plotting with Clive, calling me clueless. I remembered the suitcase, the banner, the way she tried to ruin me. "Forgiving and forgetting are different," I said, keeping my voice steady. "I forgive you, Mia. But this chapter's over." She flinched, like I'd hit her, but I didn't wait for a reply. I turned and kept walking, the weight lifting with every step. Outside, the air was crisp, the sun low in the sky. Reporters swarmed me, microphones in my face. "Mr. Hayes, how do you feel about the ruling? What's next for Grant Holdings?" I held up a hand, stopping them. "I feel good," I said, simple and true. "And what's next isn't up to me, it's up to the law." I pushed through, Dana clearing a path, and climbed into my truck. We drove off, leaving the chaos behind. I didn't look back. The house was mine now, but I wasn't going there, not yet. Too many ghosts. I'd been staying at the motel, and that was fine for now. I needed space, time to figure out what came next. Later that night, I sat on the motel bed, the TV on low. The news was all about the Grants, Clive, and Rosalind's indictments, the company's collapse, my win in court. They showed a clip of me leaving, my words looping. "I feel good." I turned it off, leaning back against the headboard. My phone buzzed, Mike, texting congrats. Lisa sent a picture of her bakery with a sign, "Hayes Day Special, free coffee." I smiled, something real and warm breaking through. Willowbend was changing. The Grant's shadow was fading, and people were stepping into the light. I'd done that. Not alone. Dana, Marcus, Sarah, all the others had helped, but I'd started it. I'd stood up when they thought I'd fall. I thought about Mia one last time, her voice echoing in my head. "Can we talk?" No, we couldn't. She'd made her choice, and I'd made mine. I wasn't the guy who walked into that club anymore, clueless, trusting, hoping for a quiet life. I was something else now. Stronger, prouder. I had power, not just the equity or the house, but the kind that comes from fighting and winning. The Grants were done, Clive and Rosalind locked in their own mess, Caleb gone, Mia left with nothing. I'd walked out of that courtroom free, but more than that, I'd walked out with my future. I tossed my phone aside, closed my eyes, and let myself rest. Tomorrow was a new day, and for the first time in a long time, it was mine to shape. I stood in the driveway of my new place, a small house on the edge of Willowbend, far from the Grant mansion and all its ghosts. The paint was peeling a little, the yard overgrown, but it was mine, bought with cash from my tech consultancy, no strings attached. It had been a month since the courtroom victory, and I left the motel behind, ready to start over. The house Mia and I shared was up for sale, too big, too full of memories I didn't want. This new spot was simple, quiet, just what I'd always pictured before everything went sideways. I hefted a box of books from my truck, feeling the sun on my back, the air clean and sharp. Willowbend was still buzzing from the Grants' fall. Clive and Rosalind were neck-deep in legal trouble, Mia keeping a low profile. But for me, it was time to rebuild. Not just a house, but a life. I wasn't the guy who'd walked into that fake party anymore. I was something new, and I was going to make it count. The first few days were busy. I unpacked, fixed a leaky faucet, mowed the yard until it looked halfway decent. My consultancy was picking up too. Old clients came back. New ones called after seeing me in the news. The guy who took down the Grants, they'd say, half joking, but it stuck. I didn't mind. Work kept me grounded, gave me something to focus on besides the past. Dana stopped by one afternoon, her car pulling up with a crunch of gravel. "Nice place," she said, stepping out, a bottle of wine in hand. "Housewarming gift." I took it, grinning. Thanks. You sticking around to drink it? She laughed, following me inside. We sat on the porch, the wood creaking under us, and talked about what came next. The class action's moving fast, she said, sipping her glass. More people signing on every day. And the audits, Grant Holdings is toast. I nodded, staring out at the trees. Good, I said. Let it burn. That night, after she left, I got an idea. I'd been thinking about it since the courtroom, something to turn all this mess into something good. I called Dana the next morning. What if we started a platform? I said. For whistleblowers, financial victims, people like me, like Marcus and Sarah. A place to share proof, get help. She didn't hesitate. I'm in, she said. Let's do it. We got to work fast, me on the tech, her on the legal side. I built the site from scratch, simple but solid. A place where people could upload files, connect with lawyers, find resources. Dana lined up a team, pro bono attorneys, a couple of investigators. We launched it a week later, calling it Open Ledger. The first post was mine, a short video, just me in my new living room, talking about what the Grants did and how I fought back. If they've hurt you, I said, looking into the camera, you're not alone. We can help. It took off. Within days, we had dozens of submissions, stories, documents, people the Grants had screwed over spilling it all. Marcus signed up, posting those files he'd saved from his accounting days. Sarah shared her lease nightmare. Others came too, farmers, shop owners, even a teacher who'd lost her pension to one of Clive's scams. I spent nights reading through it, my laptop glowing in the dark, feeling the weight of their trust. Dana and I hired a few people to keep it running, accountants the Grants had fired, a developer I knew from an old gig, an architect whose project Clive had tanked. We turned a chunk of the old Grant estate, seized in the audits, into a community center. Single dads got job training there. Startups got mentors. I'd walk through it some days, seeing people laugh, work, rebuild, and it hit me, Willowbend was changing. Not all at once, but steady, like a tide shifting. The town itself was different now. People didn't whisper about the Grants anymore. They talked loud, unafraid. Main Street felt lighter, shops picking up without Clive's shadow over them. I'd get waves when I drove through, smiles from folks I barely knew. Lisa at the bakery started Haze Blend, coffee, strong and no nonsense, she said, like me. Mike helped me fix up the house, hammering nails and cracking jokes about my superhero phase. I laughed it off, but it stuck with me. I wasn't a superhero, just a guy who'd had enough and fought back. But if that's what they saw, I'd take it. One evening, Marcus showed up with a check, a loan I'd given him to start his own firm, paid back early. Couldn't have done it without you, he said, shaking my hand. I shrugged, pocketing it. You did the work, I told him. I just opened the door. I kept busy, but Mia lingered in my head sometimes. I hadn't seen her since the courthouse, that last, "Can we talk?" echoing when I least expected it. I heard she'd moved out of the mansion, renting a place downtown, keeping her head down. Part of me wondered if she'd try again, show up with more tears or excuses. But she didn't, and I was glad. I didn't hate her, not anymore. I'd let that go, burned it out with the rest of their mess. This was about moving forward, not looking back. Open Ledger grew, hundreds of users now, stories pouring in from beyond Willowbend. Dana got calls from bigger firms, wanting to partner, but we kept it ours. This is for the little guys, she said, and I agreed. We built something real, something that mattered. One night, I stood in my yard, the stars bright overhead, the house quiet behind me. I thought about that party, how I'd walked in expecting cake and walked out with a war. Now, the war was won, the ashes cooling. I'd rebuilt, not just a home, but a purpose. The community center was packed most days, kids running around, guys like me finding their footing. The town believed again, not in the Grants, but in themselves. I'd been the match, sure, but they were the fire. My phone buzzed, Dana, texting about a new case. I smiled, heading inside. The man who'd stumbled into that fake birthday was gone. This was me now, rooted, steady, ready for whatever came next.